Hi, and welcome to St. Stephen's Kids Online. I'm Kate, and I'm so glad you joined me today. This summer, we are exploring how we can be creative with God. I hope you've been able to spend some time outdoors in God's beautiful creation. He's made so many wonderful things. Maybe you've been taking walks in the woods or exploring streams and other paths. Last week we were together and we were learning how to focus on the details of a flower with painting. Isn't it amazing that God makes big things and small things? This week we're going to meet a friend who does a different kind of art than painting. He uses photography in his art, and he's going to help teach us how to focus on different aspects of creativity in God's creation. Are you ready to meet him? Let's go. Hi kids, I'm back and I'm here with another one of my friends from St. Stephen's. This is Joe, and he is here to share about how he is creative with God through photography. Hi Joe, thanks so much for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Hi kids, welcome.
So my first question for you is, what is photography? Some people think that it's just, taking a picture, but I think it's more than that.
Well, I'll tell you what, technically speaking, photography is about recording light so that you have a permanent or semi-permanent picture that's a recording of that light. Now, that doesn't sound very exciting, but basically what that means is that you're using light and you're using objects and then some means of recording them. And there are lots of different ways to do this. For instance, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but some people like to play with what are called pinhole cameras. And a pinhole camera basically involves putting some paper inside an object that's sensitive to light and then having a small little hole in it and letting the light in. I've heard people who will take a watermelon. They will hollow out the watermelon, put a hole in one end, some photographic paper inside, and take a picture with the watermelon.
A watermelon camera? Oh
Exactly.
My goodness.
Yes, it won't be sharp, it won't be exciting, but you can always go online and you can research pinhole cameras. The more common thing is to use a shoebox. And so there are lots of things you can do, but in its essence, photography is about creating art by recording light in a way that it's permanent or semi-permanent, so that whatever you record is the same. Now, a point that you said, Kate, that I think is important is a lot of people think photography is just going off the camera, going click, click, or pulling out your phone and going snap, snap. And that's a form of photography. You're basically taking snapshots. But there's a great, very famous photographer who said you take a snapshot, you make a picture. And just like a painter isn't just recording exactly what they see, they can try that, but the painter is using part of their skill to make an artistic statement. But for photography, most of the photos that I take photos for St. Stephen's as part of the photo ministry. And I also take photos as an artist. And there are some where I do take snapshots. Someone says, I need a picture of this event. Two people virtually shaking hands. Of course, not shaking hands these days.
Right.
Or a youth event that's happening on the lawn at St. Stephen's. Or the rose garden being upgraded and repaired and fertilized for the coming season. So I'll take pictures that are the equivalent of snapshots. It's a record of this event is happening. But then I take artistic photos. So for instance, when we did the light show, the Christmas lights in the parking lot at St. Stephen's, that people could drive through and see the lights. There were some pictures I took that were very artistic. It was a long exposure. So what would happen is you see the lights changing and you would see a line from tail lights going through the photo because it was a 15 or 20-second exposure. Or I took some shots where the lights were reflected in the side of a car. So there were some things that we'd call very artistic. So typically, most photographers would tell you that for them, photography is about making art. And making art is more than just going, oh, that's a pretty scene, click. Instead, it's about composing the shot and designing the shot in a way that people look at it and go, oh, wow, that tells a story. Or, oh, I feel something there. That's something special about that. Mhm.
So how did you get started into photography, and what do you enjoy about it?
Well, I enjoy a lot of things. How I got started is a simple story. I was in middle school and I borrowed my stepfather's camera. And I was shooting film at that point, not digital. And I would charge all my classmates 30 cents to take a portrait of them. And that 30 cents covered my film expenses and my development expenses and allowed me to buy additional film for my own projects. So I did it because I liked taking pictures, and because by taking pictures of classmates, I would be able to fund my photography. And that led to several decades of taking photos. What do I enjoy most about it? When I am taking photos, time stops. I lose track of the time. I am so in the moment. I am enjoying it so much. I'm so focused on taking photos that sometimes I'll, for instance, later on in this, you're going to see some photos of hummingbirds. Well, to take photos of hummingbirds, you need to prepare and you need to be very patient. And one time I recall I was taking photos of hummingbirds, and finally I said, okay, time to pack up. And I looked at my watch 2 hours later.
And you
Yeah,
had no
I
idea.
lost track of time. Yeah, yeah. So what I enjoy about it is that, for me at least, when I do it, I lose track of time, which may sound like a negative, but I'm very focused on the moment and I'm very focused on the beauty.
It brings you a lot of joy.
It does.
That is wonderful. I love hearing you talk about it. Um, so you described a little bit of how you're losing track of time and a little bit about focus, but when you're going in for a photography session, describe some of your thoughts. What are you trying to do per se, or what are you hoping will happen when you're ready to do a photography session artistically?
Well, there are two things that I would say that are important. The first is it requires some preparation. Some of it is as simple as checking out your camera, making sure it's got an SD card or a memory card in it, making sure your battery's charged, making sure you have the right lens, your lenses are cleaned. I don't mean to make it sound like it's a long checklist, but for instance, if you're going to climb a hill because you want to shoot the sunrise, you don't want to climb the hill and realize, whoops, my battery's dead. But then the second thing that's important is to also be flexible, to be in the moment, to not be rigid.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, Pastor Gion had a youth event for Easter at the church. And I was there shooting away. And then I realized, oh, wow, there's this really cool set of pictures of these stones that she painted that are part of this scavenger hunt for the kids. And so I got pictures of the stones. That wasn't anything I planned on before. That wasn't anything she said, oh, and be sure and take pictures of the stones.
Mm-hmm.
But that was something that I discovered at the moment. Or you might discover there's a really cute picture, a couple that looks like they're very much in love, or a young child who was totally in the moment. I remember another church event during the summer. There were two kids playing with a bubble machine. And I thought, wow, this is cute. I've got to shoot this.
Mm-hmm.
So you really need to do, they sound like a contradiction, but they work well together. Prepare, have a plan, and then be flexible and be willing to junk your plan.
Mm-hmm.
And do something that's in the moment, because you go, oh, wow, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to go over here, or I'm going to shoot this.
Yeah, almost like be ready for anything.
Yes, very true.
Yeah. So how would you say that photography helps you connect with God?
Well, I'm a big believer in the concept of creation care. And the idea is that God expects us to care for his creation. And that part of the reason we are here on this planet is to be curators, to be caretakers. Just as your parents are supposed to be caretakers of you and to care for you, we are supposed to be parents for this planet and all the wildlife that live on this planet. And so for me, a big part of my photography is wildlife photography or nature photography. And later on, you're going to see some pictures of some of the wildlife that I've taken, that I've photographed. So part of that is talk to anyone who was an avid hiker or outdoors person, and they will probably repeat the mantra or the phrase, take only photos, leave only footsteps. And the idea there is when you go out in the wild and you interact with animals or critters, you don't want to destroy their habitat. You don't want to change their life in a negative way. And so the idea of take only photos, leave only footsteps, that's part of the way I reach out to people. For instance, some people have never seen pictures of a real elephant before. And I've had the opportunity to do that. I've gone to Africa. And so I can share those pictures, and that gives them an idea of the wonder of elephants. Or they may not have seen a hummingbird in person before. And I can show them pictures of hummingbirds, and they go, wow, they're amazing. And that gives them an appreciation for nature and our planet. So photography for me is very much about connecting with God. And I'll also say photography is very much about art and beauty. And that's an appreciation for all of the beauty and the perfection we see in the world, which also helps me connect with God as well.
Yeah, he's an amazing creator, that's for sure. Well, Joe, could you show us some of your photos and share some stories with us?
Absolutely. Okay, so I promised I would show you some of my pictures, and I've chosen two sets of pictures. They're both wildlife, and they're the biggest land animal on Earth and one of the smallest birds on Earth. I'm going to show you pictures that I've taken of elephants and of hummingbirds. Now, the elephants, and here you see a big bull elephant, are just amazing creatures to see in person. Here you see one drinking from water from a river, and you get some idea of just how long and how talented this trunk is that they have. And I took all sorts of pictures of elephants, some of them interacting with nature. Here you see the sun setting behind two elephants as they walk away. Some that capture the sense of what elephants are like. People don't realize elephants are jokesters. They're playful. These elephants were swimming across the river. They're not walking, they're actually swimming. Their feet are not touching the riverbed. And this one's swimming along, and this one came along and climbed on his back. And so the very next photo is this one takes his trunk with water and squirts this one in back. These are like two kids playing in the pool. It was just fun to watch. And any idea what this elephant's doing? He's squirting mud at another elephant. They're having them, they're playing in the mud and they're squirting mud at each other. Okay. Of course, one of the things that's always cool to see are the baby elephants. You know, their legs are so small, they have to take 8 or 10 steps for every one that the mom takes. And so they're usually straggling by the end, taking these furious steps with their ears waggling because they're having to work so hard to stay up. They're incredibly fun to watch. And here's an example of, they've just gone through a river. And so this is the muddy marsh and this baby's stuck. And so it started squealing out for its mom, and its mom turned around and used its trunk to help pull it out of the mud. And this is, I think, probably a good picture to end with some of the elephant shots that I took. Most of these were taken in Botswana. And the first time I went into Botswana, I thought, okay, I'm going to get elephant pictures. There are a lot of elephants here. And I started counting. And once I hit 50 elephants in the wild, I stopped counting. There were just too many elephants. They're amazing. Here you see the sun setting, and this is the Chobe River, which is the big river that runs through Botswana. So it's got reflections in it, and it's got the elephant silhouetted in the background as the sun sets. So elephants are just an amazing, amazing creature to see. But another one that's equally amazing are hummingbirds. And all of these are hummingbirds that are local to where we live here in Northern Virginia or the Mid-Atlantic area. And hummingbirds are amazing creatures because they live here during the spring and summer and early fall. Then they commute or they migrate south. They fly across the Gulf of Mexico into Central America and South America and spend the winter there. So I'm very fortunate. I've figured out how to do a good job attracting hummingbirds, and I put up hummingbird feeders in my backyard. Some summers I have as many as 7. And here's an example of a little hummingbird hanging out at the feeder. This is one that I took at Green Springs Park, and this is a fascinating story. This hummingbird is actually based on the West Coast. It's called a rufous hummingbird. And what happened is it took a wrong turn when it was migrating, and instead of flying south to Central America, it flew east to Virginia. and it spent the winter here and survived. The great volunteers at Green Springs were making sure that fresh food was put out every morning, nectar that wasn't frozen, and a heat source to help keep it warm during the winter. And here's another example of a hummingbird at a feeder. And one of the things that I want to show you is something that makes hummingbirds unique is they're iridescent. So when bright light, either from a flash or the sun, strikes the hummingbird, they look like they're made of metal. And here you can see this hummingbird with its feathers, its very fine feathers, and the wings almost look transparent, don't they? Okay.
They do.
I had to shoot this at 1/4000th of a second. That's the shutter speed because their wings move so fast. Okay.
Wow.
And this is a little hummingbird that's fattened up on the nectar in my backyard, getting ready in a couple of weeks. This was shot last fall to fly to Mexico. And you can see how fine the feathers are. It almost looks like dog hair or cat fur. Okay.
Yeah, very fluffy.
Yes. So a couple of other examples of hummingbirds frozen in flight. And here's another example of a hummingbird where you can see some of the iridescence. So some of you are probably saying, oh, well, this is all cool. I don't have elephants and hummingbirds in my backyard. What can I shoot? Well, one of the things you can start is just choose a common object in your house. It could be a pencil or a pen. It could be a set of scissors. I chose a glass. And then try and take 6 to 10 different perspectives on that glass. So it looks like 6 to 10 different objects. And here you can see I took a picture from the top of the glass and then focusing just here on this side right here and how it distorts light. And then I used the glass like a magnifying glass and held it up with some flowers in the background. And then here you're seeing it distort the curve of the top of this metal tray. And here I'm using it as a looking glass to look through the backyard. And you'll notice it turns the object, the backyard, upside down. I could also fill it with water and shoot through the water. So there are lots of different things. Just choose an object, any object, and even if you have a camera phone, you probably have access to that. Try taking 6 to 10 different pictures. And if your initial pictures aren't great, don't worry about it. There's a very famous French photographer who once said that your first 10,000 photos will be your worst. And so what I tell beginning photographers is you want to get to 10,001 as soon as possible. The last thing that I think this illustrates is there's a great quote from a very famous photographer named Dorothea Lange. And she said, a camera is a tool for learning how to see without a camera. One of the things that I like about photography is as I walk around, I don't just go, oh, that's a beautiful flower, or what a lovely tree, or, oh, what a cute dog. Instead, I look at them and I think of them, if I have my camera, how would I get a good picture of that? And so I see things differently because I'm a photographer. And it shapes how I see the world. So that's a quick introduction, Kate, to my photography and how it affects me and how my relation to God.
That is wonderful. I've loved all of the pictures you showed, and also you've inspired me to go try, because I was definitely hesitant. I didn't know how to be a photographer, but now I'm going to go try things. And I like how you encouraged me to look at something from a different way than I normally see it, even turning the glass upside down. Or looking through it to the other side. It's teaching me to look at all things, including things in nature that God has made, to look at them from a different way, and finding beauty in that. So this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to share what I do and how that inspires me and how it allows me to see beauty in the world. And I think if all of us did a better job seeing beauty around us, I think we would all be closer to God as well. We would appreciate the world that we have.
Well, that's certainly a great challenge for all of us. So thanks again, and I hope you have a great day.
Very good. And the same to you. And thanks very much, kids, for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow. I learned a lot from talking with Joe, and I hope you did too. I never knew about photography and what it meant to capture the light It reminds me of how we describe Jesus as the light of the world. So in everything we're looking at in creation, the light is bouncing off of it, just like Jesus is with us always. It's a neat thought. And I know that when I'm going to go walking on my nature walks more this summer, I hope to take my camera phone or maybe my tablet, and I want to focus and look at things from a new perspective, just like Joe inspired me to do. I'm also reminded of the Psalms in the Bible. Psalms are prayers and songs and praises to God. And there's one that I thought about while Joe was showing us those photos of elephants that are huge, and then the tiny little hummingbirds. In Psalm 148, verse 10, it says, "All you animals, both wild and tame, reptiles and birds who take flight, praise the Lord." Can you think about that? Even animals are praising God. And when we're spending time observing the animals and noticing God's creativity and all the different ways he made them, we're praising God too. So I want you to have fun this week, taking pictures and looking at things from a new perspective, and send your stories and pictures to us. We'd love to hear about them and see them. Next week, I hope you'll join me again. We're going to be thinking about God's creativity with animals in a different way through yoga. I hope to see you there. And remember, friends, God wants to spend time with you every day in every way. Why? Because he made you. You are his precious child, and he loves you so much. Go be creative with God. I'll see you soon. Bye.